Hello and welcome back. So we finally finished up the foot pegs and the exhaust. Felt like I was stuck on those forever, but there is still some important modifications I need to get done. We're really running out of time now. I'm on holiday for a week, and the week I get back I'm going to Malé, so I better get cracking with this. One of the most important things I need to sort on this is my gearing. So, as I've said many times before, this bike handles itself surprisingly well off-road. But when I talk about off-road, I mean trail riding and green laning. But what about when it comes to having a go at competing? Then you're faced with a situation where you want to be off the line fast, and if you lose any traction, you want to be able to get it down quick again. So when it comes to the Malé Mile, one of the events I will be taking part in is the slalom hill climb. Now I have no idea what the hill's going to look like this year because it's a totally new track, it's a new venue. It could be anything, but I know I'm going to need to change the gearing. I want to be able to be in a constant power band going up that hill, and I don't want to be struggling at all. What's more is if I temporarily lose traction, when I regain that traction, I don't want to be loading up the engine. I want to be in that power band ready to zoom off into the next corner. So I need to make some modifications to the gearing, but I'm not going to be changing the front sprocket on this. What I've actually got is a very, very special rear sprocket. So, what is this part I so highly speak of? Well, it is this little guy. Now, you're probably not that stunned. You probably think, well, that's just a standard looking sprocket. It's not. This is a special sprocket. Anyone with keen vision will see that this has not got the conventional way of mounting. I've only got half holes on here. And that is because this actually bolts over the existing sprocket. Some of you might be thinking, how can that possibly work? Well, it does. And this is a part that is well documented in photos of desert racers throughout the 60s and 70s. So to me, this is like the finishing piece, because not only is this a period correct piece, but this is actually an original. These are quite scarce in the UK, but a friend of mine sorted me out with it, and I'm very chuffed with it. I used it last year, and this really gives you an edge. So I have heard that people used to take these to the races in their backpack. They'd ride there on a standard gearing and then swap over to this with a couple of extra links, do the race. I'm not sure how true that is, but it's a very romantic idea, isn't it? And I like that. So I believe a standard 5TA has a 46 tooth sprocket. Don't quote me on that. The T100 SS came with a slightly smaller sprocket. This is a 58 tooth sprocket. So this is a bit of a dinner plate really, and once you put it on there, I mean, it just looks amazing. I can't wait. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack up the back of the bike and take off the rear wheel, and we'll get ready to put this bad boy on there. As far as removing the back wheel, it is as quick and easy as that. All I have to do is unscrew that spindle, knock it through, and the back wheel will come out. This is a QD rear wheel, which basically stands for quickly detachable, and that it is. I really, really like this setup of back wheel. The other thing that's handy for what we're about to do is it leaves the sprocket in place. So now I can remove the chain and pop my sprocket over the top. So it's just a split link on this one. Now, I did say earlier that you can actually add in a few links and extend it for the purpose of the larger sprocket, but what I actually do is put in a different chain. I've got two chains. Quite a lot of stress goes into the chain on the larger sprocket because I drop the clutch quite a lot to get off the line. And when you look at the photos of it, even with, you know, a new chain, it gets a lot of stress. So I run two different chains. I'm going to take this one off and then put on the next one. So what I actually just did there was I attached the new chain to the old chain just via the removable link. On these motorcycles, the gearbox sprocket is on the other side of the primary chain case, unlike Japanese motorcycles. So it can be a little bit tricky to get to. If you just link the two up, you can then pull them through. You can also do it with a bit of wire or something like that, but that is the easiest method of doing it. So now it's sprocket time. I need to put the sprocket onto there, and for that I've got these bolts. Now these are actually centre stand bolts because they are the right diameter, and they've also got a little portion which is unthreaded. The other thing you will need are washers. So I've got a washer for either side, and then I've also got a sprung washer because you don't want that bolt coming off whilst you're out and about. So the sprocket's now fitted. A couple of things to make sure of are that the bolts are done equally, like you would on a primary chain case or anything like that. Secondly, give it a spin, check it's running true, and that it's also running true against the old sprocket. Another thing I'll do is after I've taken it for its first ride, I'll go around with the spanners and just check that it's all still tight. Only thing left to do is to pop the chain back on, pop the back wheel in, and readjust the chain to the correct tension. We've got our sprocket the size of Russia mounted, and I've just been for a little test ride. It's exactly as I remember it. It's quite leery, but there was another problem and it's made my mood drop slightly. Traction was an issue, but not because of the sprocket, because of the tyres. I've never had a problem with these tyres before, but what does dawn on me is I'm usually using this for green laning. I'm more concentrated on getting over obstacles, getting up things, rather than going fast. And where I just went for my little test ride, I tried to do a little bit of going fast and it didn't really go very well. In fact, it could have got pretty nasty. But yeah, I got one clip, which was me going up a hill, and it was hard work. Now, as I said before, I don't know what this track is going to be like. Last year it was bone dry, and it's kind of quite hard packed dirt. It's very good to race on. This year I think we might be in trouble. It's not been a very dry summer so far. Yeah, a little bit of a kick in the teeth, that. So I mean, we've got two options really. One of those is hope it doesn't rain. We're in England, so it probably will rain, or buy some new tyres. And to be honest, I haven't really got the funds to buy a new set of tyres. These are okay for what I do, they're not particularly worn. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do some thinking about that. But whilst I'm thinking about that, let's jump on to the next problem. Let's not dwell too much, let's move on. This seat, as you can see, it's held on by a belt. It has also got a little bracket at the back, but it's not very stable. It was kind of a half-done temporary job. Got excited, wanted to ride the bike, and now it needs sorting properly. So what I've got here is a standard 5CA seat bracket loaned to me by Rick, and I'm going to try and copy part of it and make my own part to join it to the seat. So this is not too complex of an object. Basically what I want to do is replicate this bend and this hole here. I will leave it longer so that I can make my own brackets to mount it to the different seat. Now this bend is important because it basically will hook over the frame like that to where there's a little rod, and that maintains the folding or lifting of the seat, and that allows me to check on my oil, fill it up with oil, check on electrics, things like that. So it's a pretty crucial thing. Making something like this shouldn't be too much of a challenge. The issue is I haven't got any gas, so I won't be using that to heat it up. What I have got is the forge. I haven't used the forge in a long time, but all I can do is give it a go. I'm going to get it going, I'm going to get my round bar, and then yeah, I'm going to bend this over the anvil, put in a little flat piece, and then drill it out, and we'll see what we've got. So I've just finished making my seat hinge. You can see there, it's pretty much the same dimensions as the original, and hopefully it will function the same way as well. I'm a little bit out of shape on the forge, it's not the best thing in the world, but hopefully it's going to work. Now on this one, you'll see there, it's got a pretty sharp indent. This one's got a tapered one. That's because I did it with the hammer. In hindsight, I probably could have replicated that better using the fly press. I could have squished it in a set location, and that would have given me a little bit of a sharper edge to where it flattens off. I've actually made two, one for the front, one for the back. The next thing I need to do is replicate this mounting, because I'm going to use a similar kind of mounting. And then hopefully I'll be able to put some bolts through there and bolt it to the bottom of the seat. Right, so now that I have tacked my little mounting plate onto the bottom of my hook, it's time to attach it to the seat. Now I've measured up where I want to put it. I was originally going to weld two little nuts on there and then do them up with a couple of bolts, but Lawrence came over to me and he said, what you want to do is you want to use a riv nut. I've never used a riv nut before, I didn't even really know what they were, but they basically are these little guys. They've got splines on the outside, you drill a hole, and then like a rivet, they will swell out and grip into the sides of the hole. They've got a little thread on the inside, so I'm going to give them a go. I'll drill this out, get the riv nut gun out, and pop them in there, see what we got. So I've just attached the hooks I made using the riv nuts. The riv nuts were really handy. I'm sure everyone else is pretty aware of these things and it's new to me, but what a great thing. So now I've got a seat that is nice and stable and maintains flipping off so I can access everything that's underneath it. The only thing left to do is to make a little tab that connects to the catch on the other side. Basically what that is a small pin that's spring loaded. You can pull it out and then it will clip in. So all I'm going to do for that is just take a little bit of flat bar, drill a hole in it, bend it, and I should be able to weld it onto the bottom of the seat. And then I should have a really nice and solid seat, which should be good. That would make a change. I am going to keep the belt just because it's handy to have a leather belt around, and I also really like the way it looks. So things are looking up. Right, so my little latch worked perfectly. It's really great to be able to use the original latch because it's a great system. And I've got a very sturdy seat now, which is great because it means I can get more feedback through my bum. And it also won't try and throw me off when I go into a corner, which is great. But that is it for today's episode, and possibly also it for the Triumph modifications at the moment. Obviously this bike will be on and on throughout the channel, but the next couple of videos I'm hoping will be riding and the Malay Mile. So I've still got lots of little bits that I need to sort out, and no doubt I'll be panicking right up to the day I leave for the mile, but that is the way it is. So big thank you to you guys for watching. If you like the video, make sure you give it a like, and if you want to see this in action, make sure you subscribe because I've got some good things coming up. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.